So what does it mean to change the space in your hip joints? In one of the last commuter practice videos, I talked about doing certain movements while you stand that really change the space in the front of the hip joint. And depending on how you did it, you could move the spine to make the movement or the leg. And I thought it'd be useful to take a look at what that phrase really means by looking at the skeleton over here. So you get a sense of what does that mean, the space in the hip joints. Because joints aren't really just a monolithic thing. The joint is really the space where the two bones meet. And how you use that space and how you sense that space, it has a lot to do with your experience when you move. So let's take a look at the skeleton over here. I'm going to move the camera closer so it's much easier to see. And I'll angle it down a little bit. Great. So you can see a couple of useful things about being able to see the skeleton. One is that the leg itself, the leg bone, isn't really straight all the way up. At the top, it's bent inward. And that bend has something to do with the way that this lever is going to connect and support all of the weight up through the spine and the torso. But in the last video, we talked a little bit about standing and changing your leg, turning your leg a little bit outward and a little bit inward, and feeling how you're opening the space in the front of the joint and closing the space in the front of the joint. Yeah? Opening the space in the front of the joint and closing the space in the front of the joint. If we turn the skeleton around, you can see the same movement from the back. Yeah? So now you get a sense of what's happening right along in here. When you point the toes a little bit outward, the back of the hip joint closes. When you point the toes a little bit inward, the back of the hip joint opens. So there's this reciprocal action that's taking place inside the joint. One side is opening a little bit, and one side is closing. Yeah? And you can see that the design of the joint, the design of the bone, the shape of the bone, the spherical shape there, the ball and the socket, give a person actually an enormous amount of freedom and choice and actually instability in using the joint. Instability is a huge advantage for movement. But you also have to solve the issues of stability, of course. Now, one of the interesting things that we did in that little practice was you learned to make the movement by actually turning the leg itself out to the side. Or you could actually work from over here and turn the pelvis and the spine to move the leg. So that in both cases, this leg is turning out. But the difference is, in one case, you're actually articulating the movement from this joint, doing it like that. And the other way, you're actually articulating the movement from over here. Yeah? And again, this is just an introduction to the variety of choices that we have in the way we can make a movement. The other interesting thing you can notice in your experience of when you do these kinds of things and when you stand and when you walk is that there are a series of about 5 muscles that run along the back of the joint here. They attach along here to the back of the leg. Some of them run from the back of the leg onto the back of this sit bone here. And some of them move from the back here up into the pelvis more or towards the sacrum. There are layers and layers of muscles. But there's a group of about 5 of them that really sit across the back of the hip joint here. And they really don't have some sort of symmetrical group on the front. The muscles on the front run a little bit more longitudinally down through the leg. And so when you think about this, you can think about those deep muscles that sit very, very close to the bone that actually help keep this relationship. They help keep the ball anchored pretty firmly in the socket. So as you're making movements, that lever still provides the support up through the rest of the body and doesn't make the movements in such a way that it kind of falls or gets lax or sloppy there. You know? So the spaces in the joints are one of the things you can tune into when you move, and one of the things you can tune into when you practice on the platform or really wherever you wait. Okay? Thanks very much.